If you could convince me that going woke is great for a business, then I would look around and I would say, okay, that's capitalism, right? I believe in capitalism. I believe in markets. You're looking at somebody who founded a company, sold it, made himself fabulously wealthy in the process, right? I'm a 100 million plus guy, right? So nobody out there believes in capitalism more than your boy sitting talking to you right now, right? I am a foremost believer in capitalism. So if you were able to convince me that it was smart to go super woke and that was going to be a huge win for your business, that going to woke politics was great, I would say, I don't blame you, right? Make the decision that is best for you from a capitalistic perspective. Data doesn't reflect that that's true. And Disney stock, and maybe we can, on the short form version of this video that we share, we can share the stock chart that I shared with all of you. Disney stock today is the same price it was 9 years ago. That is, if you had bought stock in Disney back in 2014 or 15, the stock price would still be below what you paid, very likely, today as it was back then. It's pretty crazy to think about. It's because Disney's brand has begun to collapse. There's data to reflect this. I'm not just making it up. Back in 2014, according to Axios, Disney had an overall score, brand reputation, of 83 out of 100 in their event here. And the score deals with character, trust, trajectory. The Disney brand value has declined from 83 back in 2014 to 70.9 today. And you can go see this. This is written up on OutKick. Maybe we can put the graphic in to show you what the Axios data shows. And they test, Axios does 100 brands. And Disney is now the 5th most polarizing brand in America. Didn't used to be the case. 5th most polarizing brand in America. Think about that. If you grew up like I did, going to Disney World, watching Disney movies, the idea that Disney would ever be polarizing is crazy. And this has led to a collapse. Used to be Disney had kind of equal numbers for Republicans and Democrats. People agreed on Disney's brand. The reason why Disney has collapsed is because Republicans have abandoned Disney as it has decided to go to war with Ron DeSantis over the Don't Say Gay, so-called Don't Say Gay bill. And you know what? If you argue to me, hey, Disney is actually gained by fighting this battle in its overall brand, I would say, okay, maybe that's the right move for Disney. But the data doesn't reflect it. Again, this is Axios data. Disney's reputation for Democrats has gone up from 72.5 to 80.3. So basically, we have gone up about, 7.5 points there in overall brand value. But it has plummeted by 14 points among Republicans, from 75 to 61. So Disney used to be liked a little bit more by Republicans than it was Democrats, but it was roughly even. Now Disney is wildly polarizing, the 5th most polarizing brand in America. And Disney has plummeted with Republicans way more than it has risen with Democrats. So this is a very definition of woke politics being bad for Disney. Bob Iger is making a really bad choice by going to war with DeSantis. He is destroying his brand with many Republicans, and he isn't elevating his brand with Democrats enough to make up what he's losing with Republicans. Okay, this is just basic math. If you told me right now, Clay Travis, every time you go on to OutKick and you mention Bud Light, your overall brand collapses. I would say, maybe I shouldn't talk about Bud Light anymore. Because I'm going to make rational decisions that make sense for my overall brand, right? And that brand is directly connected with OutKick, which is growing explosively. Because I want us to get bigger and become more influential, and that makes the business more valuable. That's a very basic essence of brand building and also business. Bob Iger should be answering questions, the CEO of Disney. Why are you adopting left-wing political woke arguments if that is destroying your brand and decreasing the overall value of Disney? And in particular, the stock price has not moved 9 years in a positive direction as the overall brand value of Disney has decreased and the polarization has increased. Think about this. Why would Disney be leaning into politics at all instead of just focusing on making great movies? What ultimately works is transcendent, phenomenal business, the content that you create. Disney right now is losing $11 billion in streaming. The Disney Plus subscriptions are declining in the United States, which I think is probably connected to this polarization, even if they don't want to acknowledge it. And yet Bob Iger is leaning more into woke politics. What about just coming out and saying our goal is to make great movies and great content that children all over America will all love? Because look what's going on. Marvel movies starting to decline in revenue. Star Wars, such a disaster that Disney's basically had to put pause on things because they've alienated a huge percentage of the Star Wars base. Look at the last few movies that Disney has come out with. They've been a mess. What works is universal appeal, and the data reflects that going woke actually directly costs your business money. Now, why does this happen? I think this is an interesting dynamic. You may have heard me talking about it on Clay and Buck. I think the reason why this happens is CEOs make decisions oftentimes that are in the worst interest of their company, but are in the best interest of the CEO remaining employed. I really think this is what goes on. And so Bob Iger might even recognize, he sees this data, that he's wrong, but he's making the choice to be wrong because it guarantees that he continues to make tens of millions of dollars, even if he's destroying the underlying brand value in the process. And I'll give you, to close here, a thought. Mike Slive, former SEC commissioner, now passed, phenomenal SEC leader back in the day. He was an older man, and we had a pretty good relationship. And I remember him having a conversation with me. He said he thought about the Southeastern Conference as a public trust. The value of all those brands in the SEC, Tennessee, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, now Texas A&M, Missouri, soon to be Oklahoma, Texas. He said, I think about the SEC as a public trust because it means so much to the people who are fans and graduates of those schools. And I'm paraphrasing him. My goal is to make that brand stronger to pass it on to others who will be running it in the future. And Greg Sankey, commissioner, is a friend of mine. I think he's done a fabulous job so far as the commissioner of the SEC. Disney's that. Disney is a public trust institution like the Southeastern Conference is because your grandfather, if you are a fan, or your grandmother, or your great-grandpa, or your great-grandma, oftentimes rooted for the same team that you do today. You probably started going to tailgates when you were 5 or 6 years old, and you became a fan, if you are a college football fan, very often of the team that you root for long before you thought about going to college. That's particularly true in the South, where I live. Disney's the same way. Before you even made a conscious decision about supporting or not supporting a brand, you probably watched Peter Pan or Cinderella or Snow White. And your parents and grandparents probably shared that with you because they had watched it as well. And what happens is the public trust of Disney is being destroyed in real time by going to far left politics and alienating a significant subset of people who were predisposed to already like Disney. This is an absolutely awful decision on the business side. It's basic math. Bob Iger is failing to preserve the public trust of Disney, like Mike Slive, the former commissioner of the SEC, said he worried about doing as well. And I'll just leave you with this thought on that comparison. If you're an Auburn fan, and you were an Auburn fan in 1980, and your family were big Auburn fans, I bet it's almost certainly the case that as we sit here in 2023, 25 years almost from 1980, I bet you're just as big of an Auburn fan today as your family was in 1980, right? Can you say the same about Disney? I don't think you can. That's what happens when you destroy the value of a public trust. It's bad business, and even worse than that, it's bad long-term decision-making